little. And actually, you intimidate me, man.
After what?
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of your work.
Subscribe.
Subscribe, like and subscribe.
Thank you. So,
Suddenly, art is deeply serious, and people are deeply serious.
this is what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Artists, not writers are serious.
Writers are serious. But for the last year and a half, I've coined this term paramodernism to define the features of art and politics of the last 15 years. And there was so much of an influx of media, so many media channels, that all images were images you had already seen. And that is postmodernism, where every image is an image of an image.
Borrowed it, yes.
Borrowed image.
How do you get someone to trust?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Gestapo.
Gestapo, who?
Shut up, we ask all the questions. Okay, that's not how the Gestapo actually say it. But
What do you dream of? Do you get like
if
so many visuals, so much art, so many ideas, so many opinions? So,
I grind my teeth. That must be because I dream a lot.
No, that
as well.
Yeah.
There's something called the anxiety of influence that artists would feel and writers would feel. And I find that artists today don't feel that, the younger artists.
Yeah.
I see so many painters now, sculptors. This could be made in 1950, but it is not. If a postmodern artist made that, why do you trust painting to be as much as it does? So
I'm
trust
asking
is
questions. I'm asking.
yeah.
Tell me.
One theme that runs through it is feed the Brahmins. Like you go to a zoo and you have do not feed the animals.
Yeah.
You go into the maze of Indic writing, and everywhere you find the sign feed the Brahmins.
Like every time you say something, it just sounds like you have
There's a backstory I can tell. Yeah.
You have another side to you, which is independent of the artwork.
Like I'm a huge fan of mixed martial arts. So every Sunday morning, MMA, yes.
You're an introvert.
No, I'm not an introvert. I wouldn't classify any of that. No, not an introvert or a loner or any of those things.
No, I didn't say loner.
No, I mean, I'm just. But I mean, I'll talk of a person I admire a lot, and also some issues around that.
Gossip.
Or Geeta Kapoor. I think curatorially, this change to paramodernism has meant the end of a certain kind of curator. Like, I was a very bad brother, I have to say. I mean, I was in England for most of that shoot at that time.
Yeah.
But I did come back for the opening of Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, in case it's a younger generation, and Madhuri Dixit's sister in it.
The dog Tuffy.
And and the dog. And I sat next to her at the premiere, and it's a terrible film. I'll say this. It's just a dreadful film.
You're just being a mean brother.
No, it's poker.
Poker. Forget the Egypt thing. Poker. Come to poker, man.
Yes, very.
As a younger person, you were
ruder than I am now. Yeah, I'm not a bully. I don't think I was a bully.
I don't think he's very different from. No, I'm asking you because I'm sure you're the guy in any party who, the moment everyone says, "Hey, what do you do?" and then you're like, I'm a specialist in art, I'm a writer. Everyone's suddenly like, okay, this guy is.
No, it's a complete conversation stopper. Nobody is interested. I mean, one can define art in a certain way, but it'll only lead to more questions.
Do you get bored?
So yeah,
that guy.
I'm that guy. Yeah.
I get a little, and actually, you intimidate me, man.
After what?
No, because from a distance, I've learned so much from you, and now I'm getting a chance to have this conversation with you. And let's keep it. I'll keep this part. He intimidates me. You want to? We spoke of last time, or should we wing it?
We'll wing it like last time.
To do this, how do you do this, man?
How do you do it? I'm astonished.
No, I have to. I play a character actually. I'm not such an outgoing guy.
Right.
In YouTube deserves a little
more vim and vigor. I shall also try to do a bit more of that. Yeah.
Sure. I have so many questions. I'm sitting right now with Mr. Girish Shahane, one of. Why don't you just introduce yourself? Google him.
I'm not sure what that'll turn up. But I'm an independent writer and curator based in Bombay.
The best. That's it?
Not the best, but not bad.
Is that the way you introduce yourself?
Yes.
For someone who has words a lot of words to explain so many things in the art world and such nuanced ideas. When it comes to you,
But it says it all. I'm a writer, I'm a curator, and I'm independent.
yeah. So many years ago, I was doing a project, and he was the curator on the side in another space, and you had this conversation with me. I'm just going to take this moment to stop thinking about the technology and about the recording. Very personally, I told you, I asked you this the last time also. You had a conversation with me about writing, about when you used to write a blog, and then you started becoming a columnist for Scroll. And I asked you, how's your writing? And you said, I don't do blogs anymore. I'm a columnist. So I want to get back to this one point. It really actually made a major change in my life. And I've already told you this. So it's for people. I want to record this forever and ever. That it was you had a major impact in my psyche because of that one line.
Wow.
And I feel that if you can articulate that idea for the audiences at large.
Sure. And essentially, I used to have a blog for quite a few years, and I'd put in my thoughts, random or otherwise, in it. And as a column, it was much more disciplined. It was due once a week. I had deadlines and I was paid for it, whereas the blog was free. And of course, the incentive structure makes a great difference, at least in my case, to the amount of effort that one puts into the writing. So quite often the blog post would be a first draft. The column can never be a first draft, and there's much more research that goes into it. And
with that much passion.
I tried to write with conviction and passion, whatever I wrote, but of course,
paid for it.
Yes. I mean, I'll give you an example from Mughal painting, and I have not followed this up, but it was something a very dear friend of mine said, that people often wondered, like, oh, there are some paintings by, it seems to be the same painter, the same atelier. The quality is clearly different. And apparently a scholar has found through X-ray imaging that each of those pages that you will see with the painting on it has a number. And that number possibly signifies the amount that was going to be paid for that painting. And how much effort the miniaturist would put into it obviously was a function of how much they were being paid.
Wow.
And how much they were being paid obviously would depend on what that was meant for. Was it just a gift the emperor was giving somebody maybe, or was it for his personal benefit?
I didn't know this. This is nice to know this. I have a fun question. Firstly, also, what's the humor setting?
You can go to 10. I will try to keep up, but I'm not confident.
Okay. I have a question for him on behalf of all the artists. You add value to artists by writing, sometimes giving them context, listening to them over so much time. Some artists have no clue actually what their practice is about because they don't have the objective perspective of their own work sometimes. Okay, let me ask this question. You basically add so much value to artists. And tell me honestly, okay? Like, you're seeing artist numbers and so many artists charge like ridiculous amounts of money. I mean, much valued amounts of money. They basically are, their prices are soaring. And you as a writer, knowing that you have contributed to this, do you feel like you should charge them more or that you want a larger pie of the, in any way? Like, I'm asking as a writer because there are so many people entering the art space from a creative writing exercise perspective, thinking that they'll get flights of fantasy, that they can actually write on the shoulders of artists.
Yes.
And then the artist walks away with a lot of money. The gallerist walks away with money. Sometimes you, as maybe the smartest guy in the room, might not be valued. Do you have this feeling? Don't you just want to make more money?
I have never had this feeling. Of course, I'd be happy to make more money. I'd be lying if I said no.
Sure.
But I really genuinely, again, don't feel that at all for various reasons. Firstly, I think that the number of artists who are doing as well as you say are relatively few. And most of the artists that I know are not doing very well. And they're working very hard. Many of them are very talented and are not even getting their due sometimes. You don't
secretly want to work with only the artists who are doing well now to build your brand as a writer? Because the younger artists are doing that.
Yes.
Because it's easier for them to enter the art space by directly writing with senior artists who are renowned.
Yes.
And so they get instant access straight into the center of the game?
I think that I have worked generally with artists who are already established.
Yeah.
I work through galleries or however.
Sure.
And so it's not like I've worked with artists right out of college, like I think you have sometimes.
Yeah.
So in fact, what you do is much more creditable in that way, to really find that raw talent and nurture it. I have not done that. But the second reason, I normally, if there's a commission or that a gallery asks me to do that I find interesting.
But how do you get into this position where somebody trusts you?
Yeah, the building of trust, the building of trust is really how markets work more generally, or how currencies work. Why do you trust a dollar? Why do you trust a Subodh Gupta painting to be as much as it does? So trust is a
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, how do you get someone to trust?
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Gestapo.
Gestapo. Who?
Shut up. We ask all the questions. Okay, that's not how the Gestapo actually say it, but okay.
No, how do you get someone to trust you? Because I've seen you give walkthroughs.
Yes.
You have you have collectors around you.
Yeah.
You are the voice. You offer a lens.
But equally, again, I offer a certain kind of perspective.
Slap me.
But, sorry, did it really hurt? It was more of a push than a slap, I think. But artists have their own kind of. I have no artistic talent myself, So I'm always amazed to see the kind of talent that artists have.
Yeah.
And I would never begrudge them for what they receive as a result of that. The second thing is that I think that having English as my first language, pretty much for my whole life, has meant that I'm paid in a certain way, which is much more generous than somebody equally or more talented who happens to write in Tamil or Marathi or Hindi, And so I'm aware in many ways that I'm extraordinarily well paid.
And you're fine with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
When you were like 35, 40, you had ambition to do, are you on track in your own eyes as a writer, or do you wish you were, I don't know, I'm asking you now.
Yeah.
Watch me, poet.
Yeah.
Were you a finer?
Yeah.
Were you not dependent on artists to have a career of your own? Like, don't you want an independent writing career? You have to wait for an artist to finish making their cake, and then you give your feedback on that.
Yes. One can always do other things on the side, like Ranjit Thoskote, my colleague from Bombay. He's been a poet all his career, side by side with writing very prolifically about artists.
Yeah.
So one thing doesn't stop me from doing the other thing.
I know.
I wrote a novel, I've written a film script, but the novel at the end of it, I wasn't very satisfied by, and the film script, obviously, the producers were not interested in. So, but it might still happen at some point.
Okay, man, it happens. That's the part of the creative journey. Has anybody ever, when you have a creative low point, who do you go to?
Obviously,
the wife? Or like,
needless to say,
Ranjit Thoskote.
I'm pretty kind of.
Like, who are your friends in the art world?
Yeah, I don't go confessing to friends in the art world. For whatever reason, I've been self-contained enough not to feel that need to, have a shoulder to cry on or something like that.
Sure. You don't have the urge to be creatively stimulated on your own and write, and not just poetry, but like just pick up an artwork, even though somebody's not commissioned you for it.
Yeah.
And to just write for the love of writing, like a painter does.
That's what
assignment.
Like my whole blogging was just that, right? I wasn't getting paid for it. I'd write almost every day.
Yeah.
But I do find
on Instagram now.
Right. But that's always building something. And I guess so was blogging, that it might lead to something at some point.
But it led to Scroll, 20 years in Scroll.
No, I was already, even before I blogged, I started the blog after I had a column at Time Out. And again, my very good friends, since you're asking some of them, Naresh Fernandez, who I'm very grateful to for many things. So he asked me to write a column for Time Out when he was the editor of the magazine.
Yeah.
And that was my first regular column. And then he started Scroll as editor. in partnership with Sameer Patil, who is the proprietor.
Yeah.
And so he asked me to write a column for that. So the blog was actually between those two columns.
Would you like this conversation? I'm doing this as a portrait as a podcast.
Yes.
So I want to, like, if everybody knows you as the guy who talks about art.
Yeah.
Do you have another side to you, which is independent of the art world?
Yeah.
Which nobody knows of, because usually you're the guy interviewing everybody.
Yeah.
You're the guy asking the questions.
Like, I'm a huge fan of mixed martial arts. So every Sunday morning, MMA, yes. So every Sunday morning, like the Sunday coming, I'll be in front of my screen watching the UFC.
Wow.
Because that happens every Saturday night most of the time. And so that's one huge thing.
Send location.
Send location. I use the meme all the time. Send me location. Yeah.
My wife is like, why are you watching it at 4K? I'm like, because it's supposed to be viewed in 4K. But like I don't know, you watch MMA.
I've even written for Scroll on MMA. I've probably written 5 or 6 articles for them on MMA, on Khabib, who you mentioned,
and
others.
How is this? How does nobody know this?
Well, my friends know it, I guess.
Are you also into MDMA?
I leave that to you. Or the ayahuasca side of life.
No, but if you had a, I don't want to like make it sound like you've lost your prime, but I want to end it like, if you were to restart a career from, walk us through you were a road scholar.
Yes.
You were very sure of that you want to do a writer and that you want to do in writing. Can you walk us?
I was always good at writing.
Yeah.
Like I was always terrible at painting, for example. So it would have been very unfortunate if I had this burning desire to make it as a painter.
Sure.
It does happen sometimes that what you love doing and what you're good at are two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So luckily that wasn't the case.
And you've always had an opinion. I'm trying to get to understand you to as a, I know you as a funny, happy guy.
Thank you. Yeah.
And you've always given great advice and feedback. And I feel like people don't know this side of you.
Right. I think that people who meet me know that.
Yeah.
That I'm pretty easygoing, etc. But yeah, I mean, if you're only reading it, and of course, one's online personality now is often different from one's real life personality.
Sure.
And stuff like that. I think I do. I think that online and in online exchanges, I come across as far more cutting than, yes.
Why is that?
I have no idea. I mean, I should really...
Is it because you're hanging around in the art world where there is...
No, it's just...
people say that there's like a... I mean, it's not like... This has not come from my mind. It's just the general assumption that people in the art world are a little snooty. And that... Would you take responsibility for being at the center of that snootiness? No.
I mean,
you're not.
There are things I'm snooty about, for sure.
Like what? And why? And why is it important?
It's not important, but that's just the way I am, One is judging people, and probably that's not a good character.
Yeah.
But it happens. I will not deny it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What is the gig that, when you get a gig of, you've been a curatorial assistant, you've been a curator, you've been an art advisor.
I've never been a curatorial assistant, strangely. When I started out, there was no such thing as a curator, really, when I was beginning, and I was a writer. And then...
How did you get your first?
I thought I was working for the British Council, and I thought they were having a show at that time called The Enduring Image. And I was doing arts events around the Enduring Image. It was artifacts from the British Museum, and it was at the NGMA in Bombay. And I thought it would be a good idea to have Indian contemporary artists to respond to that exhibition and to certain artifacts or particular artifacts. And at that time, also this whole installation, work in sculpture, which was not the normal sorts of materials, all that was coming in.
It needed a lens to be seen also.
And
how do you experience installation correctly?
Right. And so I thought that those artists were great. And so there were 8 artists that agreed to be part of it. And it was strangely very easy for that at that time to get artists. I just wrote them letters, and all of them responded positively to it. All of them agreed to be part of the job, and it was Pushpamala, Sudarshan, Kaushik Mukhopadhyay, Navjot, Rimzan, Ravinder Reddy, Vivan Sundaram. Maybe I'm missing one. Apologize for that because I don't know the list. And so, really, a
They were
great.
famous back then, or did you
They were
catch
not,
them young?
they were neither young nor really famous, I'd say. They were already established. Sudarshan had his first show, I guess, in 95, a very wonderful show. And this was 98. So I would not, but he had also had shows. I think he'd shown in Delhi and all previously. He'd been at the Kanoria Center. So they were all established in that respect. But Vivan, of course, was the best known of them. Navjot was well known.
Yeah, superstars. I mean, now they're like
Yes.
legends in this space.
And people would, we had a conference to go with it, a seminar. And at that time, it was just second class AC train tickets.
Yeah.
And everybody would, that was just the standard. Even Vivan Sundaram wasn't like, oh, I need to fly to Bombay. So all of them came from Trivandrum, from Vishakhapatnam.
Do people do that now?
Now, no.
You
I
said
don't
it.
either. Well, I don't either. So, I mean,
You implied something there. What is the implication? That life was simpler back then and people were not jet setters?
it was obviously before the market took off in such a great way, but it was also before communication was so easy.
I just thought of something. We had this chat 2 days ago. Can you please, for the younger audiences, explain what the art boom of 2008 and that crash was? Like, because that, I'm assuming, I don't want to say your peak again. I don't want to
Yeah.
but there was a time when things were just, everything was going like hotcakes. So, in a way, the art world was globally.
Yeah.
I'm not talking of India. Globally, the stock markets were at an all-time high.
Yes.
And the Lehman Brothers crisis had not happened, so there was, equity. There were asset classes in every direction, and art was a strong one.
Yeah.
And you were at the center of this in a big way. You've seen, in a way, the current booms, the pre-boom.
Yeah. I was kind of at the margins of it, but at the same time, I was observing quite carefully.
You were
and it was a very weird kind of.
You were the maker of. You filled a massive gap. Do you realize?
I think you're completely wrong. I wish that were the case, but it's not true. But
do you feel like you didn't cash out on the boom?
I'm not really speaking of cashing out.
Talking about.
Well, one way in which you would cash out is obviously if everything paid better.
Yeah.
And all these financial institutions were interested in suddenly having talks on art appreciation, and they'd pay quite a bit for it. So certainly I did make money. And
were you an art advisor for any of the banks of the strong rooms for?
No, I've never really been involved in sales. Now when I think of it, I'm much more. And I was also close to it at one point because the idea was that it would be a kind of conflict of interest. But now I'm not. And now, in the future, I'm certainly open to something like that. But at that point, I was not interested. No.
He's ready. No, there comes a time when, we both feel that we have not asked for enough money at multiple times at this conversation.
Yeah.
But knowing how much is enough is a big thing. You seem to be having a very happy private life.
Yeah.
Personal
and
life.
I'm not at all unhappy about the amount of money that I asked for, but I do find occasionally people will judge you on that basis, and not on the basis of the quality of the work that they find. Not gallerists who really know what they're doing or institutions who really know what they're doing, but the more business side of things,
Yeah.
That can happen sometimes, but.
Yeah, if the source conversation starts with money, then the whole conversation till the end has to go on that subject line.
Yeah, and of course there are people who only judge your worth by money, and they exist in the art world as well, among the collectors fraternity mainly.
Sure. So boom time, you essentially were, from where I was as an art student, reading and observing the art boom at the time. I was in college, art school. You were, the way we saw it, in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
And so many people, in fact, not many. Maybe you know this. I'm sure you know this. You're just like many people have switched and come into the art world as writers because of you, Ranjit. Multiple people, but essentially there are a few people who you what I'm doing about documenting art.
Yeah.
And having conversations,
which is great. I mean, I'm a big fan of your work.
Subscribe,
like and subscribe.
Thank you. So essentially, what this is an outcome of a spark that maybe you generated in my mind when I was in college, because I'm having this conversation with you while having lunch, while having dinner, and I just feel like these conversations need to be documented. There are such fine minds all around us with such nuanced ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like super nerds. Like they're super freaky nerds. Like sometimes I feel like telling all of us we should have a life. We're not having enough. We're not having enough fun, you know.
Yeah.
We're just like too much into art.
Yeah.
We trip on it, but who I want to understand within the art space. Who do you, if you can maybe tell us who your friends are? Who do you node out with, or like you know?
Yeah. I mean, I can speak.
This podcast is about you, by the way.
Yes. I mean, I'll talk of a person I admire a lot, and also some issues around that.
Gossip.
Or Geeta Kapoor, who you may have heard of.
Yeah.
So when we were growing up, she was the person every one of us looked up to. But she's also a controversial figure because she's the person who people will say, oh, that's the kind of writing that puts people off art, right? It is something that we were kind of discussing. And the thing is that people like Geeta Kapoor are exceptionally sharp and intelligent individuals who know exactly what they're saying. But it does happen that because they're so dominant and influential, they breed, not for any fault of theirs, imitators. And those imitators really don't know what they're talking about. You know? And Geeta, I'll give you an example of what I mean. It's a story I like to tell, which is that I always, when I'm giving a lecture, usually I'm working on it last minute. And this was something in Delhi at the India Art Fair, probably back in the day. And I knew that there was one word I had used, imminent meaning. And it was 2 a.m. in the morning, and as I was writing it, I'm like, all right, I need to change this word, but I can't think of what to put in it. So just in my mind, I put a play and finished the whole thing. It was a 20-minute talk. And I gave the talk, and I think it went down very well. And Geeta was in the audience. One always notices her. And at the end, afterwards, when we were talking, she came up to me and said, I really enjoyed your talk, Girish, but I'm interested in, at one point you said you used the word imminent meaning. So what do you mean by that? And I'm like, all right, she's got me, you know? So you can see it's like she pays attention at a level that other people do not and cannot. And she writes with the same kind of rigor. When I was editor of Art India, she agreed to write a column for me, which was a great honor. And so I'd have back and forth with her about individual words as well, sometimes. And so I could see her thought process on all of that and how careful she is about every little detail. There is, of course, things that we've always disagreed about, but what? She's always been very generous, I have to say, in those disagreements.
Combat. It's a healthy combat.
Yes, and it's no longer even combat, I think, for many years. Now she knows sort of where I am, and she'll always be like, yes, Girish being Girish.
Imminent. So you've never, have you found somebody using your ideas? Have you ever seen?
Please.
No problem. No problem.
No, how would you know? It's fine.
It's all fine. It's fine. Have you ever been gone for an event and somebody has used your lines? It's a compliment, actually.
Yes, it has happened a couple of times. And there's a lecture I would give on the history of Indian art, sort of the 7 stages of Indian art, which is a standard kind of one of those standard lectures I'd pull out. And I have found that kind of being used a fair amount by other people.
You feel like people take your ideas and they reduce it?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, there are some things I've written about some artists and I've, without attribution, seen other writers and curators then use a similar kind of
Happens.
interpretation. Yeah, it
done this,
happens,
actually.
and I'm not too miffed about it. And it's not like it happens a lot.
Yeah.
And if you're an academic, that kind of plagiarism, I have a friend, a close friend, Ananya Kabir, and she's caught up in some of these issues. She writes about it on her social media, where she has an idea of creolization that she's been theorizing for many years. And she finds that her ideas are constantly being plagiarized without credit being given. And so there are people who get very worked up about it, rightfully so, I'm sure.
And it's not your problem.
No, probably because they haven't
Personally.
plagiarized that much.
Sure.
If I felt it was an important idea, and then
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you get bored?
I'm rarely bored. And
Like you're a learning machine, or are you like?
now, of course, one forgets at least as much as one learns. But yes, I mean, even on YouTube and stuff, there are channels like
What are you watching on YouTube?
on YouTube, I go down all kinds of rabbit holes. But for channels like the Veritasium channel is something I often watch. Of course, a lot of MMA content. That's mainly on YouTube. So probably everything. I could probably do a quiz on like Hamza Chimaev and be like one of the
Wow.
Also toppers in that quiz for sure.
Yes.
Globally.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you like? Do you listen to Joe Rogan? I mean, he's also an MMA.
Yeah. I knew Joe Rogan started with that game show. That's when I first saw him. Who Dares Win? Was it Who Dares Win?
It's one of these.
Who Dares Win? Not Who Dares Win.
Fear Factor.
The fear factor. Sorry. Evidently, fear is not a factor for you. Evidently, memory is an issue for me. But yeah, the fear factor. And then he was a comedian, and then he's quite a mediocre comedian. Yeah. But he's a very good MMA commentator, and I know him. And then, of course, he became the world's biggest podcast host. And, of course, he's a conspiracy theorist of the first order. Yeah. As an MMA commentator, he's good.
You have what do you like? What do you do for fun? Like what's fun for you apart from traveling and discussing beer? Oh, by the way, he knows his beer, man. Yesterday
all my friends who drink beer with me will laugh at that, saying how wrong that is.
So yesterday we ordered a beer, and for like 10 minutes he's telling me the carbonation of beer and like the details and why he thinks this beer is wrong. By the way, I left the beer because of you.
Yeah, no, it was really funky beer. It was really weird. I really thought I'd be ill after drinking it.
I like the confession of all your friends.
Yeah, seriously, because they know that I just have like one drink at the most, or maybe two.
What are you good at other than like art and writing and things?
Yeah, the thing is that when I was young, I wasn't good at singing or painting, which my sister was good at.
I like the way you start every sentence by saying, I am not good at it.
Well, but I was good at quizzing, I was good at chess, I was good at sports.
Yeah.
All sports. So, there's not that nerdy guy who was bad at sports. So I didn't have a problem with friends, because if you are a person who's good at these sorts of things. And
like good.
Yeah, so my school was IES English medium school, which I did not enjoy at all as a school. But of course, the friends you make are
for life, forever.
Yeah, some of them.
You go to.
But I must say, my college friends have more. I have more friends from college than I did from school. College was Elphinstone College, which in those days was pretty good in English and some other disciplines. But the friends I made at Elphinstone stayed with me much more.
Every time you say something, it sounds like you're implying something. Like it was great at that time.
Yes.
Or like every time you say something, it just sounds like you have
there's a backstory I can tell, which may be very uninteresting to people. But Elphinstone, we just had a reunion, and we realized that the cutoff date for graduations who signed on, the youngest graduate who signed on had graduated in 1993.
Yeah.
So that tells you, like, nobody after 1993 is interested enough in the institution to come for a reunion.
Wow. Or maybe they just, I don't know more maybe.
Yeah.
They're like,
The people from the 1950s are still there.
oh, 1993 you met. Okay, that bad.
The youngest, 93 onwards. Yes.
To all his friends. I'm sorry. So you essentially are, when you're not writing or you're not, and also how do you introduce yourself to, this is another, I'm asking an ethnographic question.
Yeah.
Like an alien walks up to you
Yeah.
and says, what do you do? And then the second question is, once you say, I study art and I understand art and I'm a subject matter expert on art, you say, I write, and somebody asks you a question about art. How do you start pulling them inside a work of art? I'm asking you, like, because I'm sure, like, you're the guy in any party who, the moment everyone says, hey, what do you do? And then you're like, I'm I'm a specialist in art, I'm a writer. Everyone's suddenly like, okay, this guy is.
No, it's a complete conversation stopper. Nobody is interested.
Seriously?
Oh, art? No, they're kind of respectful. They say, oh, that's great. But it's not like it leads anywhere.
I thought you'll be like the center of.
Because I tend to explain things at greater length and people are interested in having them.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
That guy.
I'm that guy. Yeah.
You don't make it spicy enough for them.
Right. Yes.
Because art is a subject.
Or for you, I apologize.
No. This is a specialist subject on art, but
yeah.
But no, I'm asking because art is like almost the next sexiest thing to spirituality and godliness and like subjects of like deep nuance and meaning. And self-searching, soul-searching. So there is this element. So when you say that I understand art, it's almost like saying I understand religious texts or like I have a deeper understanding in these ideas.
But people approach it at the same level as they approach all this wellness and spirituality.
2030's theme is wellness.
It's for example, a whole lot of keto vegetarians, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, what even is that, right?
This is what I mean.
It's completely impossible to be a keto vegetarian. I have an opinion. So they want to be in that. They want to, keto is a thing. And so they say, I'm keto.
But what if somebody says minimalism in sculpture? What is that, even that?
Tell me about keto vegetarianism. Have you not found people on a keto diet who are vegetarian?
Not from a tropical country. Yeah, I agree. In a tropical country, to have
anywhere, it's not possible to have a keto diet that's vegetarian.
Sure.
But they will, or this is healthy because it doesn't have gluten in it.
No, there is a smaller universe amongst these.
Yeah. So that's the level at which they understand nutrition. That's the level at which they understand spirituality, and that's the level at which they'll understand art.
Which is why, if you were in a party with me, and if I knew that I'm not an artist, and you are a subject matter expert in art, and if you said that, hey, I'm this guy, I'll have 1,000 questions. To understand, like your keto vegan.
Yeah, but you are in art. That's why you think that people generally have 1,000.
I said it's an ethnographic question. It's like you were explaining into an alien. Because our channel now is entering spaces which were not before.
Entering space, if you're talking of aliens.
No, I mean...
How would you...
Yeah, okay, fair enough. If an English-speaking alien came around and they asked, what is art? Okay, I don't want to ask you the stock question of what is art to you and all that.
Right.
It means it's hyper-specific and hyper-local to you. But in general, how I have a tough time. The whole reason of starting this channel is to disseminate ideas. One artist at a time, one painting at a time. You've done this for the last 20, 30, 40 years.
Yes. But I mean, one can define art in a certain way, but it'll only lead to more questions. I could say that it's the creation of some kind of object or work or concept devoted to an aesthetic appreciation, for example. But that leads you to an idea of, then explain what aesthetics is. What is the nature of aesthetics? What about art that is ugly? Then is it still aesthetic? And then you get into the concept of the sublime and the beautiful and the picturesque, and how something that's ugly can still be sublime and therefore still within a certain kind of definition of aesthetic appreciation. And you've lost your audience by that time.
Why do you
They've moved their second beer to the bar.
Why do you imply that? If someone like you now considers this a boring subject, I
don't consider it a boring subject.
I hear equity investors speak.
Yes.
And after a beautiful 40-minute explanation about a company's breakdown, they'll say, okay, it's been 40 minutes. I don't want to bore people more.
Yes.
The whole reason we were there with you for 40 years,
Yes.
listening to you, was because we are not bored. Why do you imply that I'm getting bored? So I'm noticing a lot of people have this self-deprecating kind of feeling where they first.
No, it's not self-deprecatory. I think that I do explain things well and lucidly.
Yeah.
But I do find that attention spans are
You have
very
a great
short.
sense of humor. Why don't you
And-
introduce your sense of humor while explaining art?
Yeah.
Why
That's a
the
good
hell is the
question.
art world so serious?
That's a
Like,
good
why is that?
question.
I started the
I mean,
panel.
a lot of the art is not has humor in it.
A lot of it has.
Yeah, yeah.
Then why you? No, not you. Why writers? That's another burning question I
I
have.
mean, one of the ways, just off the cuff, I can think of is how you would introduce humor into an art review or an art catalog would tend to be derogatory, wouldn't it, in some fashion, or mocking,
No.
would it not?
Why will it be? Why do you again imply that?
No, I'm just wondering, how could you introduce humor into something
What if the
that
art?
was not judgmental?
Don't you
It's
feel like?
possible, I'm
Don't you
sure.
feel like all the artists?
I mean, you can be witty,
Yeah.
of course. There's a room for that.
Don't you feel all the artists are now mimicking the writer's seriousness and becoming? I see that because amongst my friends, half of them in this exhibition at StoneX in Kishangarh are very funny people. All of us, you, me, all of us, we like literally have. Maybe that's the only bone I have.
Hmm.
People, when I have to write my artist statement, my God, do I make it serious? I made it serious. I know everybody who does that, and I feel, and I strongly feel, this is my personal belief, and I have vetted this in the industry, that it's a reverse generational trauma kind of thing, where basically writers who have deep-seated insecurities with their broadcasting abilities are creating serious psychological tropes and constructs in their own mind and using visual artists to voice their opinions and blocking artists and saying to fit them into categories so that their books sell.
Hmm.
You know, more than Van Gogh, the books on Van Gogh sell. So Van Gogh is not a famous artist because he was a great artist. He was great because so many writers have literally milked that artist, and so it's so clear for all of us artists to see this.
Yeah.
Don't you see this pattern? Which is why I asked you, why didn't you make enough money? What was the boom like? Because I'm sure you.
Yeah, I remember during, since you're speaking.
Sorry, I went on a rant over there.
No, that's fine. It's always good to rant on a podcast. I've done my rant as well about keto vegetarianism already, and I'm sure more will come. But
You don't have anger about something?
anger about many things. Our government. You want to speak?
Sure. No, go for it. It's open access.
About the politics of the day, about a whole lot of stuff. But let me get back to during the boom. I remember this conversation. It was probably a panel discussion at Saffron Art. Somebody put up their hand afterwards and says, "But why don't we have more good writing about all these artists? Them, selling for such amounts, but we don't have information." I said that the reason that writing gets produced about art is not that the art sells for a high amount, but that the writer is adequately compensated. And so that never around that time, I mean, the newspapers stopped having art reviews. Also, the review went out of date in a way because everything has to be instant now.
Yeah.
And so everything is a preview rather than a review. And what you get in a preview is only what the PR team will give you, pretty much. Yeah. So that kind of writing was completely, out of favor in many ways. And there are a number of reasons. One writes about the death of the art critic, and there are 10 different reasons for it.
Give me 3.
One is technology, that there was a certain gatekeeping that something like the Times of India would have. That you have an authority because you're published at the Times of India. And there's a process that's continuing with mainstream media and people like you, right?
Yeah.
And the competition between the two. And quite often podcasters and all have a kind of anger at the mainstream media and vice versa. So once everybody could write a review and it online, it could be free. That authority that was determined by the ability to publish no longer existed. So it was replaced by what I call curator speak. So that's the other thing about why. So authority was defined by the language you used, which could not be imitated. Sure. Everybody could publish, but everybody could not write that jargon. Yeah. And so that became that's when one of the reasons why the curator kind of eclipsed the critic as the person of authority in the art world. So that technological kind of trajectory is one reason why art criticism did.
If there is a work of art and there's an art critic and a curator, whose reading would you prefer to listen to?
Both, I think. I mean, one of the things, because they have different perspectives.
I was hoping you'd choose.
No, you can't. And of course, it depends on how there can be interesting curators and uninteresting curators and insightful critics and dumb critics. So, it would also depend on their individual.
Sorry, you were saying the death of the publishing, and you said there are 3 points. One is technology.
And as a result, the compensation went. The second is it still relates to technology, which we spoke of, the speed.
Yeah.
So the review, the exhibition after which you speak and then you write about it was no longer. When I was the editor of Art India, it's still called the Art News magazine of India, partly because Art India was just taken, so they needed another. But I always felt that the news was still an important component because what was happening internationally, just the news of what was happening there, people did not know.
Yeah.
And this was not very long ago. It was 25 years ago. And now that component has completely vanished because everybody knows kind of instantly what is happening.
Like you don't need this platform.
You don't need those things anymore. So that's another reason why publishing an art is.
Do you have a hot take on? Do you have hot takes? Do you have anything about quality?
About quality?
Yeah. Now you're reading other people's works.
Yes.
Do you feel like you're the best, or like you're one of the best? Like
one of the best, but definitely there are many better than.
How would you improve?
And since it's not such a huge number,
How would Girish Shahane improve as a writer?
I could have, again, to give an example of Geeta Kapoor, she was in touch and friends and close to all these artists. She sat with them in their studios. They spent days together. So there's a kind of intimate understanding you get of a practice, which other writers have also derived. But since we're using her as an exemplar, she definitely has that, and she continues to have that passion.
And you're not
about it.
That social.
I'm not that social.
You're not antisocial. You are antisocial.
I have learned to be social. I'd say that. Yeah.
Hang out with me a little more.
Yeah. I really, enjoy seeing people who have that kind of drive and sociability.
You're an introvert.
No, I'm not an introvert. I wouldn't classify any of that. No, not an introvert or a loner or any of those things.
No, I didn't say a loner.
No, I mean, I'm just, or recluse, people. I remember when Jahangir Sabawala, who I did know well.
There's certain sadness in you, man. you have this,
inner sadness. Turmoil.
I didn't say loner, man.
but they all go together. Introvert, loner, recluse. Like Jahangir Sabawala would always be described as a recluse. And he was anything but. He was a tremendously polite, gentle person who enjoyed going out, who enjoyed dressing up, who enjoyed meeting people.
Fine guy.
But so often you just hear he's a recluse, as if that gives him some kind of extra dignity. He's not.
I don't know. I won the Camlin, the gold medal for Camlin. He was my jury, and so he handed over me the award. And then I was wearing some nice tie. So he was like, come over. He said, he's like, I like what you're wearing or something. You're very finely dressed. And I was like, same to you.
Exactly.
And then he was like, that's nice. He's like, I spoke to him for some time. I think he said, come for a drink or let's go for a drink.
There you go.
And I was like,
would a recluse ever do that?
No.
Go to judge a Camlin competition and then ask someone.
No, I was good. I won the award for that. I went to Europe, that Euro trip or whatever was there. Through that. But Jahangir Sabawala looked like an introvert. He was very 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 sharp guy. But everyone thought it. But actually, when I spoke to him, I felt like I'd like to be that guy.
Yeah.
He had the qualities of, but yeah, he was definitely not a loner. You've been so you have no friends. You don't do. I mean, again, I'm using Geeta Kapoor now as an example. You don't hang out in artist studios.
I do not
You're
hang
like,
out in
job done.
artist
I wrote about
studios.
you.
I mean, I visit artist studios, but I know like what you speak of having drinks
Yeah.
till late in the night with
Yeah.
artists and
That's what I
stuff. I do not.
I know only artists.
And that would probably have helped me as a writer had I done more of that. So since you're saying what could be improved, that's certainly one thing.
No, I meant it as a joke, like, but
Yeah, but I, not being a joker,
Yeah.
gave a serious answer. But I think it's true that that kind of familiarity
yeah,
can come only from knowing someone's practice very, very intimately.
personally, yes.
And you have to be good friends with them for that.
Sure. Can I ask you a private question about traveling?
Yeah. Sure.
Just revealed to me yesterday over dinner that you travel with your wife.
Yeah.
I found it really healthy as a person. Kind of think that he travels. I just said something about there are these blocks of marble around us, and there was a huge gantry machine that was lifting blocks of marble, and I said my first instinctive reaction was like I don't know how the pyramids were built, and then he says I was just there 2 days back. And so I then
2 weeks back.
2 weeks back,
yeah.
and then I just realized that he actually travels a lot, and I like that story.
Yeah.
Is there any thing that travel has taught you that you'd like as a writer?
Yeah.
And also MMA, traveler, art,
Poker.
Forget the Egypt thing. Poker. I'm poker, man. Let's have let's humanize.
You play poker?
No.
No. Okay.
I'm from Goa. I stay in Goa.
Right.
So
Yes.
the poker culture in Goa is like I find it very crass.
Yeah.
As a sport, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yo, who are you, man? MMA, MDMA, poker?
Yeah.
I slipped MDMA.
That the intersection, the Venn diagram
You're a wild
is
guy.
going to be very tiny of people who are into these three things.
Yeah, well, you're a wild guy then. I don't think people know this about you. Anything else? I have more fingers.
No, in terms of the major pursuits, I'd say that. And I'd say not just, I'd say combat sports have been interesting. So before MMA, boxing was a very big passion.
Oh yeah, your
But,
Cassius Clay reference.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So it's,
Say my name.
yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know this. So you have a wild side to you, and you watch this alone?
Yeah, because I don't have a single friend. I don't have a single friend who likes MMA.
Seriously?
So it's just me.
Your wife doesn't watch it with you?
Not at all. She's not interested in poker. She's not interested in MMA.
No
but
friends
she
from
is
AES.
very interested in art. We are interested in film and art and architecture and all those things. And so when we travel, we're very compatible in that respect. I always say that quite often I could go around a room and point to one painting as one that I really like or one sculpture that I really like, and then you go around with her and say, all right, which is your favorite? And 90% of the time it would be the same.
Wow.
So there's a lot of music. So we share a lot of tastes.
Does she like do the? Does she like give you feedback always? Like does she like?
I always.
I don't know how to ask this politely.
Yeah.
Is she a strict wife? Does she make you a better person? Your soul.
Yes.
Many. Also, shout out to his wife is the editor of the film Lapata Ladies. Recently.
Yeah.
We are in 2024.
Yeah. Or 25.
25.
Mm-hmm.
No, but the film was in 24, right?
24, yes.
And so, pretty talented. I forgot her name though.
Jabin Merchant.
Sorry.
And so
There must be
everything I write, most of the things I write, unless it's a super deadline, I always show her. And
she has the time for you.
Yes, she'll make time and read it, and she's very. I think she's very balanced in her assessments, which helps. My mother is a writer, and
names,
Shanta Gokhale, so it's all different surnames. And she's written like probably 25, 30 books. She's an authority on theatre, Marathi drama. But she is not critical in the same way. She's too sympathetic. So everything I write, she tends to like more than she needs to necessarily. So in terms of giving me backing what I do, of course, she's amazing. Enthusiastically backing it. But in terms of giving feedback that I can actually use, I think Jabin is better.
I have an editorial question. You're a writing editor. She's a film editor. Do you all have like, pour a whiskey one night and just talk about editing itself, the beauty of editing? Like, I love editing. Just editing as video editing. Like, I cut my documentaries and artist films. And
Yes.
I love the software. I love the experience of making meaning. By cutting different ideas and like then making a narrative. Do you guys jam on stuff like that? Any example pops out like which is like where you all actually don't get along? Is there something where like gossip? Is there what do you all fight about the most? Or can you?
I'm thinking of things that there are always things that you fight about. We can't cook together at all. Every time we've tried cooking together, we fight. So it's so there are some things that you just have to do independently.
You're not cutting together.
I'll always be cutting it at the wrong angle.
She's an editor. She's cutting.
So
y'all discuss editing. Y'all don't discuss editing.
Yeah, every time we'll see a film, and of course,
and meaning making.
After she comes home, we'll have a discussion on how my day was and how her day was, and of course, she'll speak about particular things and particular issues.
Both of y'all are doing 9 to 5s?
No. But she works in a studio every day, and I'm usually home, or if I'm not traveling like I am now. And so then we discuss our days when we meet. And so that is an ongoing thing. But more often we speak about the editing of something if we watch a film together.
And you say, wow, that's a great script. And she says, wow, it's a great film. And you say the book is better. And she says, no, the film is better. And then you'll fight over.
I remember the first film that I was in England. And I watched Schindler's List there, and she watched Schindler's List here. She was an FTII. Maybe it's a bit of FTII snootiness at that time about Spielberg. But we had a back and forth. It was snail mail. It was envelopes posted, where I was defending the film, and she was saying that
she didn't like
that.
She was young then.
Young, yeah.
Forgive her,
of course.
It's a great movie, man. I like it.
Yeah, it's a very fine movie. And I do think that Ralph Fiennes should have got the Best Supporting Actor Oscar. I think that's his best role of his lifetime.
There is a Reddit articles on why they feel the same way. They should have. Many people, now recently Christopher Nolan also.
And when I was a quizzer, that's another thing I used to do. I don't do it now. But
you're a quiz master.
I used to participate. I probably was a quiz master a couple of times.
What's your IQ?
But I'm not sure. I guess it's high. I've taken it a couple of times, but
what's the average?
Yeah, it's above
130.
It's above average, and I'm not necessarily saying it just the way Chris Pine says it in to Gal Gadot. It's not Gadot. Apparently, it's Gadot.
Gadot,
Can you believe that?
I don't.
All this time we were saying Gal Gadot. Anyway, he says it to her in Wonder Woman at one time when she comes in and she says, "Would you say all men are like you?" And he's like completely ripped and he says, "I would say I'm above average." He says it very well.
Wow. Girish Shahane is watching Wonder Woman. You went from Schindler's List to Wonder Woman. And then MMA.
I started out, my first gig really was as a film critic. This was before I went to England.
You had a fun life then. I don't want to sound like you're like, I'm old, but you played around.
Yeah, but you played around from film critic to literature to art writing. It's not a huge playground.
But you don't feel like you don't have imposter syndrome, or you don't feel like you winged it too hard, or like I feel that. Myself.
Okay, yeah, no, I that's one thing I don't feel I have.
And you're multi-talented then.
I feel like what I've written about, I'm quite confident about, and I try only. It's not always possible, but try only to say things that I believe in.
Anything
in my writing,
any conviction that you.
And I had an opinion column which is not to do with art for many years. So that was also like my scroll column. So that was mainly about politics and history.
Yeah, actually.
So all my opinions were there. It's a very Brahmanical thing. If you go into that, if you want to go into that direction, you're art curator and opinion columnist.
That's okay. At least you
What
have
could be more
opinions.
Brahmanical?
I mean, are you saying that it's a bad thing or it's a good thing?
I'm not saying it's a good
Are
thing,
you
but
teasing or are you trolling? Yeah.
yeah, it can be. This is the thing. This is where it gets very misunderstood
But you have
sometimes.
words. You
So
can
I'm
explain
not.
that.
Yeah. So let me do that. Though
Yeah,
it
correct
doesn't
us.
help. It doesn't help because the context is always removed when it is replayed. So
Yeah.
the explanation is no use. That's part of the state we are in. But in the sense that I'm not religious. I eat beef. I've never had a religious ceremony. I'm an atheist and I believe in reservations and a whole lot of things that many people of the upper caste do not. So politically, I'm not of the sympathies common to my caste or community, you could say.
Got it.
But at the same time, I can see how much of that kind of social and cultural capital
Yeah.
that accrued to me as a function of being a Brahmin.
Yes.
That I grew up in a house with 1,000 books.
Hmm.
Yeah. And what I went on to do. So in a weird way, however anti-Brahmin you are
Yeah.
in your politics,
Yeah.
in some ways you can end up still being defined. We've talked of the politics of language, the fact that I write in English
Sure.
makes me so much better paid.
Yeah.
So another
So that's
fact of it
circumstantial.
is, so it's also circumstantial that I was born to a privileged caste,
Sure.
and so
Hold on
so
to the
much
caste.
of what, yeah.
Why hold on to this identity? Why not release it? If you are an atheist.
But that's the point, that I have released it intellectually,
Yeah.
but it's still something that benefits me.
And you're sure of your what's the word for it? You're receptive of that.
I'm cognizant of the fact that
It has helped you in your career.
yeah, very much, because I mean, when you look at Hindu scripture and Indian scripture, there's a lot of amazing philosophy. There's a lot of superstitious nonsense, and
In every
then
religion?
no, specifically Hinduism. I guess every religion has it to some degree, but in terms of the high philosophy, I'd say that in terms of the crests and the troughs,
Yes.
Hinduism has more extremes to it.
Yeah.
And but the one theme that runs through it is feed the Brahmins. Like you go to a zoo and you have do not feed the animals.
Yeah.
You go into the maze of Indic writing,
Yeah.
and everywhere you find the sign feed the Brahmins.
Yeah.
You have a sacrifice, X number of Brahmins were fed.
Right, yeah.
And when you see the
Wow.
travel writing of people in the 19th century and all,
I
the
never-
Brahmins who went to Ayodhya and all, they were poor. They were not wealthy at all, but they were sure that they would be fed,
Yeah.
and so that's already quite a difference, right? In a culture where historically just starvation and having food has meant so much.
Yes.
Just the assurance of being fed
Yes.
it's a tremendous kind of boost.
Sure.
There's that security.
You had a good childhood also. You've not. And your sister are you okay if I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure, yes.
The lady with a million, what was the name they gave her? $1 million smile.
Something like that, yes.
That.
She never made $1 million off it, but yeah.
Renuka
She did
Shahane,
say-
the actress, is his sister.
She did say, like, how come no toothpaste company has ever had me?
That is so true.
Because every interview I give, they say that
But
and talk about my smile.
that's true. And
Yeah.
you know,
We get along very well. We've always pretty much, I mean, of course, brother, sisters, kids will always fight.
yeah,
But yeah, we get along tremendously well.
yeah,
I was a very bad brother, I have to say. I mean, I was in England for most of that shoot at that time.
Yeah.
But I did come back for the opening of Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, in case
Hum Aapke.
it's a younger generation and you don't know about this film. It was a bit of a landmark watershed film. And my sister played Madhuri Dixit's
everybody
sister
knows that
in it.
the dog Tuffy.
And and the dog. And I sat next to her at the premiere, and frankly, it's a terrible film. I'll say this. It's just a dreadful film.
You're just being a mean brother.
No, I mean, there are many other things she's done that I think are very good.
Good, yeah.
But But I didn't have to. I mean, as her brother, and as she was obviously very close with the cast and with Suraj Barjatya, who was this, very hospitable and amazingly gracious director and person. And if you see the film, the entire cast is in every frame all the time. So they spent whatever 120 days together in every frame, so they consequently were very tight knit at the time.
So you don't like
it is not. Do you?
No, I don't like.
Yeah, nobody with taste would like that film.
After writing a letter about Schindler's List to your wife, and then going for the premiere of Hum Aapke Hai.
Yeah. And so I was next to her, and I think she could feel that I was not, and I was pretty much, and I should have been. No, but if it's an important event for her, and it would be nice if I just given off a warmer kind of vibe.
But you were rude back then.
Yes, very.
As a younger person, you were
ruder than I am now. Yeah.
You're rude. You feel you're rude. You want to say sorry to somebody in the past. If you might have. Okay, he's not going to say sorry to you, whoever you are.
Whoever.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
You've not bullied anyone.
I'm not a bully. I don't think I was a bully.
I don't think he's very different from no.
Because you never know what other people think of you.
If some young artist came with their portfolio to show you, because the artists are desperate, you're not desperate, you're obviously very secure, we've just found out. Now, if an insecure artist came up to you saying that, Girish, please see my artwork.
Yeah.
Can you give me your 2 cents or your $2 or your 2 million?
Yes.
Give me your feedback or what's the best way to come to you, or should they not, or should they?
Do, and I usually try and at least say send your portfolio. If you have a show, call me. Usually I will not sort of say, okay, I'm coming to your studio tomorrow. So there is that. But like an artist, just
how would you like artists to present themselves?
Just in the place we are, there's a woman who is an artist as well. She's a graduate of an art school, and right now, just before our conversation, she showed me some of her work, and it's not good work, I can tell. And maybe 20 years ago, I'd have said this is too decorative.
Yeah.
But I didn't. So that's
an improvement.
I said, oh yeah, good. I said, this looks like acrylic on canvas. Is it large? You have to say that kind of thing, and then
you're doing the right thing.
Sorry?
Are you doing the right thing by telling her?
I mean, I wonder what purpose it would serve to kind of
you specifically because of your expertise.
Yeah, but I don't think I can give her constructive advice
in that much time.
There were times when I've given constructive advice to some person, then it's different. But if somebody I can see from the work that it's in a certain kind of mode, then there's really nothing I can do to help.
You get tired seeing so much art? Like I see a lot of art of Artist Plus. Like a lot. Like people just send their portfolios saying, because we used to we make films on artists, and I also explain one artwork at a time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. Sometimes in the beginning there was no money, but now people are commissioning because it reaches, we just crossed 10 million views. So
like and subscribe.
Again, the second time. But then don't do the second time, because then you'll unsubscribe.
Yeah.
You press the one button. Essentially, you want to, people come to you with, there's an image of you in their head.
Mm-hmm.
It's what the stand-up comedian Zakir Khan's grandfather told him. He's like, people imagine you as a celebrity sitar player.
Yeah.
So don't break that illusion for them.
Yeah.
So when someone's coming to you because you are Girish Shahane, the writer, the guy who gives feedback, and then you say it's good, and you don't give them what they want to bite on. You don't satisfy them. They might.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
tiring for you, I guess. Like
no, but in the past I could have analyzed it, the reasons why I don't think this works.
Nothing that will change your mind. If let's say if suddenly I told you that, can you see that there's this in the work, and you'll be like, oh wow, now I like it. Have you ever changed your?
Yes, for sure. And always if an artist I remember going to a show with Me Too, Sen. Again, a person I like tremendously. And her work as well.
Super authentic,
And so she said something about a Sheila Gowda work that we were looking at Ski's Gallery Delhi space. And immediately it was such an insight for me.
Yeah.
So there are many such occasions, and particularly artists and other critics and stuff can often tell you things about works of art which give you a fresh insight. So I always enjoy that when it happens.
That's great.
Yeah.
What dreams do you get? You get recurring dreams?
Yeah, I dream a lot.
I'm imagining you to say I don't sleep in the night.
No, I like to get enough sleep if I can.
What do you dream of? Do you get like
If
so many visuals, so much art, so many ideas, so many opinions? So
I grind my teeth. That must be because I dream a lot.
no, that's
Do you grind your teeth as well?
so I went to a dentist.
Suddenly you seem to be very familiar with this.
No. So the dentist told me that I grind my teeth.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It seems they say that it's stress or whatever that is often the cause, but I don't.
Not stress or whatever. That's a subject matter expert telling you that is anxiety.
My dentist also told me you don't look stressed or anxious. So I said, no, I don't feel stressed or anxious, but obviously, whatever, it all kind of expresses itself at night.
Yes, you are. You take no responsibility. You don't have any creative ideas. You're not answerable to anybody. You don't do a 9 to 5. You're not anyone's employee.
Right.
In your head, are you an employee?
No, not at all. No.
And so then what are you stressed about? You're traveling, you have a lovely wife, you have a great chemistry, you have a lovely family.
Yeah, so I don't know why I grind my teeth.
It's a hormonal imbalance.
Maybe possibly, yes.
I mean, for a 45-year-old guy to grind his teeth, you should like.
Thanks for lowering my age by 11.
45 plus GST.
Yes, plus GST plus what?
Plus.
Yeah. The 10 lakh tax bracket or the 15 lakh tax bracket.
I asked you the money question. Your relationship with money, and also what's keeping you up these days? Like, why are you not sleeping? Why are you grinding your teeth? Or what are you writing about?
Yeah, the thing that I've been most interested in over the last year and a half, really, is that I have to say that I first lectured on modernism in 1994-95. Right? And that was already an age when you had something called postmodernism, which some people might be familiar with, some not. But essentially, it was a movement where popular culture was much more important, where references to popular culture and texts talking about other texts in an ironic and playful kind of way.
Borrowing.
Yes. So that was a phase. And over the last 10 years or a little more, it's been clear that postmodern phase has passed. But I had no idea what had replaced it. There was one theory called metamodernism, and it has some insights, but I wasn't fully convinced about. And it didn't have a broader kind of idea of politics. How does politics affect art? The way postmodernism did, and the way modernism did.
There was a phase of the Anthropocene, and everyone was discussing.
Right. Like that, of course, is a buzzword like rhizomatic, the Anthropocene, these things. Yeah. But the broader scene is, I mean, to give you an example, everything was ironic for many years. And then irony just completely died, right? Pretty much.
Why?
Suddenly art is deeply serious and people are deeply serious.
This is what I was talking about. Yeah, art is not, writers are serious.
Writers are serious, but they're too serious. But one of the reasons is, and so and I couldn't understand the new art that was being made, like what, the way I had my handle on art from my generation, the previous generations. That's all right. I was not very confident in interpreting the art that I was seeing within the interpretative frameworks that I had inherited of modernism and postmodernism.
Okay.
So this doesn't fit, but at the same, so what is it? And so over the last year and a half, I've coined this term paramodernism to define the features of art and politics of the last 15 years. And I wish I had more time, because what I do in my spare time is I've given 2 lectures about it, but I want to now prepare something for publication. So yes, whenever I have time, I try and do that.
In a brief, if you have to summarize this concept?
Yes. So,
I mean, it's a very expansive idea, I'm sure, but
yes,
if you had to just give a slight hint to...
what happened? Okay. Can I speak for about 3 minutes or 4 minutes straight?
It's a podcast.
Yeah, it's a podcast. That's great. So what happened in politics is that from 2008, there was a kind of Washington consensus. And what happened is that between countries, like China was growing, India was growing. So between countries, the differences were sort of diminishing. But within every country, differences were greatly increasing. The rich were getting richer,
Poor,
the
yes.
poor were getting poorer.
Yes.
You know, and nobody had and nobody has a solution to that. Okay, so as a result, the left wing, which did not have a coherent answer to how within this society, within this technology, without going back or without getting, poorer, as some of them would like to, which is an unworkable idea. How do we solve this problem within these circumstances? And nobody has come up with anything close to an answer. And so as a result, I think partly, the left moved completely away from class towards identity. So everything became identity. Right. And if you see the arts discourse globally now, it's completely identitarian.
Yes.
Right? So the left not being able to cope with this made it
identity. Towards community-based, like everyone's trying to find in-groups. Rather than they've drifted out from individualism now.
Yeah, but that's part of what I'm saying.
They're part of a cult now.
So, this identitarianism has just taken hold in the left.
Yeah.
On the right, again, although the right has conventionally been much more comfortable with inequality, there are movements there where they're against the big guy, etc., and places like the US.
Yeah.
And so it led to this trend of populism in the right wing and the rise of conspiracy theories.
Yes.
Oh, this is happening because X, Y, Z. And the weird
on this angle, it went too woke, and on this side, it became
Trump,
yeah,
and Musk. Now, currently.
No, but now these guys. I mean, this is a conversation I heard from Joe Rogan, where they said the left went too left.
Yeah, but they never say the right went
back
too
and
right.
They've now come on this side.
There's a meme that Musk often uses where he's here, which was the center, and then because the left has moved so far left, he's now right.
Right, yeah.
But actually, that's not the way it went because the right has also grown.
Yes.
And as a result, the polarization has grown. As a result of social media, you don't have any more people kind of the discourse between where the idea is to get somewhere. That's no longer there.
Yeah.
It is, you're actually
binary now.
And you're performing to your own audience.
That is
effectively.
True. That is super true. I agree.
And so you've moved from a stage, where there was an idea of art, now coming to art from politics, where you're trying to represent the world.
Yes.
Then there was so much of an influx of media, so many media channels, that all images were images you had already seen. Sure. And that is postmodernism, where every image is an image of an image.
Borrowed image. Yes.
And now everybody's a performer. So it's now you're creating as well. Everybody's a creator. Every social media post, every Twitter post
is creator itself.
Yeah, you're performing politics.
Yeah.
You're performing your life.
Super true, man.
And so paramodernism is defined by these sorts of phenomena.
Yes.
And one of the things you see, for example, is history has kind of been collapsed a bit. Like you have apps on your smartphone.
Yeah.
There's no longer that sense of the burden of history as a result as well.
Yeah.
There's something called the anxiety of influence that artists would feel and writers would feel. And I find that artists today don't feel that, the younger artists.
Yeah.
And as a result, some of them create in styles, many of them I see, which seem very much like this could be 100 years ago.
Yeah.
I see so many painters now, sculptors. This could be made in 1950, but it is not. If a postmodern artist made that, they would have some kind of actual citation of 1950, and they would have a kind of ironic playfulness in that citation. But now it's just itself. It's not sort of representative of any particular, so it's not retro, because when you use the word retro, it has a very conscious reference to an earlier style.
Yes.
And so there is the style which feels timeless, out of history, but is not retro. It is serious. It is, and then about individual lives, personal lives, because that's part of becoming a performer on social media. And so as a result of social media becoming more performative, artists are much more inclined to speak about their personal lives and personal narratives, which I find interesting. And the reason why I've called the cluster of phenomena paramodernism is that para means sort of beside. And so it's not like something that is specifically referring to. Now it's a step sideways.
Yes.
And I curated a show called A Bold Step Sideways, which was with a lot of these young artists with personal narratives about their parents sometimes, about their community, and then it becomes the personal becomes political through community. So that was the kind of trajectory of, and included a lot of these timeless sorts of styles of work as well. And I want to curate more shows about it and write more about this phenomenon that I call paramodernism. But of course, apart from beside, when you think of para, you think of paranoid.
Yes.
And the fact that we are in that paranoid culture, which I spoke of, the conspiracy theories, the domination of right-wing populism. So it's also paramodernism for that political reason.
It must be tiring for you because if every artist is a vertical in themselves with cultural identities which are so different from each other. Like before, people come from like different class systems, income groups. I mean, you have so many demographically ideas.
Yeah.
For you to actually sit down and actually invest in writing for each of these and explain these to people.
Yeah.
How do you think? I'm asking you a very a popular question. If I was a buyer of art, and I had to actually invest my money and my time into appreciating a work of art, it's becoming exponentially difficult because I do this as an artist because I explain one artwork. It becomes so tough because the research per artwork has a backstory, which is literally infinite. And so to explain that curatorially, large, like what's happening in the world. Kind of you are not just Girish Shahane anymore. You are the denominator. You have to kind of like you have to hold the entire cultural identity of this country in a way to explain this phenomena, paramodernism. So and present it, not just hold it, but you have to actually serve it one day to a rich buyer. To kind of like to kind of an investable, packetable, investable commodity or a product. You're going to have to put a lot of time for a lot of effort for very little, because these are all younger artists now.
Yes. But I mean, luckily that's not my goal as such, even in curating. Hopefully they do find buyers. A lot of them also creating works like painting has come back, and
painting has come back
in a big way.
Tell me why you think that. I think painting's dead.
You do think painting's dead. Okay.
Why do you think paintings come back?
Well, the practical reason was that in the
Saffron is making more money selling paintings.
No, in the pandemic, a lot of artists were just confined to their studios, and a whole generation.
That's the reason why painting, the thought process or a medium is back. Come on.
Yeah, because I mean, all these factors do influence people. A lot of people were creating installations back in the day just because it was something they ought to be doing. They thought, it wasn't about some kind of internal great drive, because otherwise people would have been doing it at other times, right? Installation has been around from the 1960s. Why did nobody in India do it for 30 years before? It's something to consider. I mean, there are people that
maybe people did it.
They did not. They did not till the historical circumstances were right in India.
Don't you feel you travel less, that somebody sitting in Coimbatore or someone sitting in Jammu Kashmir or Srinagar might be doing something, and you Bombay boys sitting in Bombay don't reach there? And now you're saying that painting has come back dead, you're passing your judgments. I know so many artists who apply for all these residencies. When an award has to be given out, for example, you don't travel the country and find talent all over the country. You're asking your 10 best friends and their best friends. And then the Forbes 30 is given to the closest metropolitan city people. It's not given to the 3-tier kid who's sitting in Ajmer, or someone who's stunning ideas coming out from different parts of the country.
It could be, but traditionally, and I think it's broadly true, there's always outliers and exceptions. But broadly, there is still that idea of the provincial and the metropolitan. And even if you try, say, Arte Povera, a movement like Arte Povera, and you go to Milan, and then by the time you come to Naples, or, I was in Naples just last year for the first time, and Caravaggio was there. And so you could actually see the movement, that Rome was the center and all the great ideas came from there. A great Roman artist. And Caravaggio was not from Rome originally. He was from Lombardy. He comes to Naples, suddenly so that's the way generally that art ideas spread. And now with the internet and all, of course, it is much more possible that an artist would arise in a very provincial context without any metropolitan education, who is doing this kind of interesting work, but it's relatively unlikely, I'd say. I mean, unless we speak about specifics and you say, this artist did it.
No, I'm talking in general. Like there are so many
Yeah.
artists coming from so many parts of the country.
Yeah. So in general, it's possible, but unlikely, I'd say. But
I had
so one,
yeah,
one
sorry.
more.
Yeah.
Let them finish. I'm not the market of the artists, of course. I wish them the best. But since you mentioned curating and bringing this whole raft of ideas, I think curatorially, this change to paramodernism has meant the end of a certain kind of curator. Like I said, the death of the art critic and the rise of the curator. In a way, it's not really the death of the curator, but certainly the death of a kind of curator who was globe-trotting, who would represent global art in a particular forum, whether it be documenta, with a kind of authority to speak on behalf of. And now suddenly it's like, who are you to speak for us? Because you don't have our identity, because it's like Kader Atiyah, who's actually from that Menasa sort of region. He had, I guess, run in with two Iraqi artists who objected to the way that he had placed their work in relationship to some images of Abu Ghraib. And the interesting thing was not just that they withdrew and there was a sympathetic note from artists, but the justification of the curators. Their authority for placing these pieces was, one of us is Vietnamese. Like I have the history of the Vietnam War. I have felt trauma as well, was the idea. All of them might have, and therefore I can, so it's not, they have also the basic idea that was being presented, that our identity cannot be represented, was acceptable by both sides. So there's no longer a debate about that. As a result of which, that kind of omnisophical curator, I think, is dying or dead.
You, though, have a great career ahead.
Thank you.
Is there anything that I have not asked you that you want to course correct something about you that somebody has misquoted? You're on YouTube now. So
Forever.
This is not writing. People, do you feel people are reading enough? Like all the effort you put. I have 3 degrees in English literature. Okay? And I find it difficult to read fiction. I read a lot, I read all the time, but it's all non-fiction. And, I read poetry still, but fiction, novels, I find it very difficult. So, and I spend a lot of time on YouTube, so I can't really blame people who were born with these things, who were born with the smartphone. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I'd be the same. Had I been that age. Reading, I just feel like people are watching. People are not. I think podcasting is still the music industry. And I think like nobody's reading. I should get the Bhau magazine and Art India and stuff like that. And a final point, since you said the music industry, and we can maybe close on that. Again, going back to paramodernism, Spotify, of course, has lots of podcasts. Over 25,000 songs are uploaded to Spotify every day. Yeah. When was the last time you heard a song that was original? That you felt, wow, this is something completely new? Yeah. You can't think of one, right? Can you name a song in the last 10 years that you heard? And, this is like... Okay. That is interesting. That's interesting. So, because I'm Guns N' Roses and Metallica. There you go. For me to... like the last, when I heard like Apollo 440 or like 5 or 7 listening to Daft Punk now. Right. I find it really tough to explain to people why do I like the LP of Daft Punk. So you're also from an older generation, but the thing is that I think that like when hip hop came on, even people from the older generation understood that it was something fresh. Yeah. So. And in art, when Cubism and all these movements started, they were genuinely something that was pathbreaking and new. And in the last 25 years, in music, in cinema, in art, there has been no formal breakthrough. Of course, in art, there's some digital art that is different, but so there's a kind of formal stagnation across the arts. Architecture is an exception. I think there's an originality issue. Like if you call it originality, we live in a culture, meme culture. People are recycling original content, adding the jokes on top of it, pushing it out as their original content. I think, I made this meme. There are a million memes now. So it's a great point. I was going to ask you an originality
question. There you go.
Who are you
Yeah.
to say this is original and this doesn't make the cut? It's a bland question. My question to you is like, okay, you've given your life, your youth to to fine art and to having opinions and like, and I'm judging people and judging works and stuff. Now, when you say works, what is are you believe in originality?
I do believe in originality, and that was one of the issues I went through. That I'd see young people's work, and I'd say, "Where is the originality?" You know. But now I realize we are in an era, the Paramodern era, where originality is not a criterion, as there have been eras in Egyptian art and Chinese art where originality was not, and we have to kind of come to terms with that. I think
If not originality, then what is filling this gap?
so. All these things that I spoke of personal narrative, of a certain kind of timeless. If you listen to Sabrina Carpenter, stuff like that, it's kind of catchy, but you cannot say that. And again, I won't even sound like an old fogey because I'm going to talk about things that were even before my time. Like I wasn't even born when the Beatles' Revolver album came out, and Tomorrow Never Knows was in that. And I recommend anyone watching this, I recommend to them, if you have not heard that song, hear that song, and at the end of it, hear it carefully. It can't be in the background. And at the end, immediately you'll see, wow, it still feels original, and you say, what, why? And if you try and compare it to anything being created in the last 15 or 20 years, I don't think you will find that kind of moment where there's this leap. And there was a technological leap at that time, and many other things.
There's only 8 to 16 bit at that time. I mean, technology also. Sometimes technologically also, there are new materials now.
Yes.
So when I listen to, 32-bit music from newer artists, like you listen to some Marshmallow tracks, I'm not expecting you to know these names.
Right.
There are like younger electronic artists
Yes.
creating music, like Swedish House Mafia.
Yeah.
Like lots of people,
They've been around for a long time. He was kind of, you come up with Swedish House.
No, you'd be like Prodigy or something, like Fat of the Land, that album, classical album, like which kind of like entered 24-bit. You were mentioning Sony Walkman.
Yeah.
So people can take their artworks and their experiences personally. So that the birth of how people are experiencing artworks.
Yes.
Even the artists today, the younger artists, they believe their works are original.
Yeah.
And they're showing their works in smaller settings.
Yes.
So
it's more intimate, it's more personal, it's more, and everything, music, since you mentioned the Walkman. The fact that even when the Walkman is out, the standard is still loudspeakers, and when you have loudspeakers, it's people listening together to Dire Straits, Alchemy, or whatever, or Guns N' Roses, whenever they came out. But once everybody is just listening to their personal device, then you have that personal whispery music, which is why so many women artists are now dominant.
Yeah, actually, if you hear Dire Straits' Brothers in Arms, you can't hear it on loudspeaker.
Right.
You have to hear it on a headphone. It's designed, it's mastered for headphones. All the German headphones are those big.
Right. Okay.
Whisper in them.
But Dire Straits would still be, I'd still classify it as loudspeaker rock because you could all kind of hear it together and were meant to. But so this is, I think, when was the last great band that came? It's been so long. When was the last great rock band or pop band? And the fact of the dominance of women artists in the music industry, in the Western music industry, it's again the same personal narratives, intimate narratives.
Like Taylor Swift is coming up with her own first, like, this is how I am. Justin Bieber is talking about his personal life.
Yes.
Ed Sheeran is talking about his life. You're right, actually.
And I do kind of miss the idea, again, going back to the Beatles and Dylan, that era, that of course they were talking of love, they had love songs and they were talking of personal lives, but they were talking of so many ideas and mystical ideas and, political ideas. And I think that not many of the top artists are doing that.
Maybe because it's risky. It's just believing in troubled times. I don't get
it's too late. But
The sun is
the conversation. The sun is in the east, even though the day is done.
Would you be comfortable giving out an email ID in case somebody had questions?
No, I prefer not. Is that okay?
Is that okay? Please answer in the comment section.
Okay, there's an email ID you can use. Girish Shahane at protonmail.com.
Girish Shahane, I imagine you watch this later. You have like questions, and you know that it came from this podcast.
Yes, exactly.
Spam the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Girish Shahane at
protonmail.com.
protonmail.com. On that bombshell, I am going to say an absolute
Thanks a lot, and I hope it was worthwhile. Thank you for spending the time.
I really had a great chat. One of my long lasting wishes was to have a chat with him. It happened, and I think I learned a lot. I've learned some stuff from him. Lot about writing. I can't write to save my life, but about how to think as a powerful person, and how to kind of like have opinions and believe on your ideas and actually write them. Like the act of writing itself is something where you actually are ready to put your ideas out, manifest them in the real world. One of the reasons I started this channel was because of a mind like this, and I think that I had a great conversation with you. If there is anything that you wish that we speak about,
it's the first time I've spoken at such length about my career and my life.
Really?
So yeah, I've never.
Don't ask you.
They have asked me a couple of times.
Thank you. It's a big compliment.
But very happy that
I had to wait 25 years for him to calm down. I had a great chat. Thank you so much. What is that?
Like and subscribe.